Hey,
It's a pleasure to have you here this morning. This is Amelia Townsend from Burda Principal Investments. It's great to see you. You're in London.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much for having me today. It's a great initiative you guys are running.
It's great to have you, and I'm sure we're going to have a really interesting morning together. So I just wanted to start a bit with the background around yourself, because now you are working with Burda for a number of years. Before that, you spent some time also in corporate venturing with Unilever. So how did you get into venture? What happened? What inspired you?
Sure. Yeah. So what brought me to that? So I guess before I moved into VC, I knew I had a passion for tech and business models and understanding markets and market drivers. And I'd really enjoyed setting up a small business and founding a non-profit for women in business, and then moving to learn more about large companies and strategy consulting. But I really wanted to move closer to really fast-growing companies and look across those themes. And I think now that I've spent a few years in the role, there's a number of other great attributes that I think would bring me to the venture market now, or would continue me in this role. So learning about new markets and their challenges is still brilliant. But I think that moment where you meet an amazing entrepreneur who's really beautifully solving that market problem you've been learning about through leveraging technology and envisaging what that market could look like for consumers is just such an exciting moment. And then building really truly trusted relationships with entrepreneurs is really special. So joining the entrepreneur's journey and going through the ups and downs with them, trying to be as helpful as possible, connecting the dots between other companies and what's happened with them to support that, and seeing the company grow is awesome. And then I think in terms of Burda, what really brought me to this platform is the unique positioning that BPI has as a global growth investor. So it's really strong platform expertise and deep consumer expertise. So the team has invested and worked with companies like Etsy, Vinted, Skillshare, Zilingo, amazing platforms. And I think, BPI is truly global. So our investment committee is comprised of our 5 offices around the world. So in Munich, Singapore, Berlin, UK, Boston, all sitting together, albeit virtually, and before COVID, even virtually. And we're every 2 weeks sharing tangible learnings across the globe. And I think this is really unusual, and it helps us to be insightful to our companies, and of course help with that geographic expansion question, which is often the case at growth stage.
Wow. Okay. So where's the headquarters actually? Or is it all 5 of us?
In Munich. Yeah.
In Munich. Okay. And just to get a more of a feel for Burda, what kind of ticket sizes are typical for an investment?
Yeah, so we're getting involved at the growth stage when a company has product market fit and almost complete management team, and we're not tied to stages, but generally that would be like a Series B or Series C size investment, and we can lead or co-invest or follow as I guess the founders driving that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, it's an amazing list of really successful companies that you guys are in, a couple of unicorns there. What I like very much is that you have a couple of companies from my region, from Central and Eastern Europe, because Vinted is Lithuanian. You are also investors in Showroom, that's Polish. Yeah. So it's quite, I would say, sort of forward looking, because very, very few investors are so active everywhere. And so I'm really happy to see that from my standpoint, obviously. You are in these really successful companies. You yourself are working with the board of Not on the High Street, I think, and a couple of others. What makes a real winner in the consumer sector? What is it?
Yeah, sure. Good question. So I guess maybe starting with companies like Not on the High Street, which is of course a marketplace platform. So maybe starting with those kinds of models. And probably my insights will be quite growth related, but maybe that's a helpful angle, as of course the success factors change over the stage of the business. So I think, number one is brilliant teams. It really is. Number two, these companies generally operate in very large markets when we're seeing them at growth stage. And I think they're not just aggregating, but often actually enhancing markets by offering technology that improves the user experience. And product we see is very important throughout the customer journey. So, the product it continually evolves as the company gets larger and larger, and enhancements and maybe specifically search improvements in marketplaces are huge drivers of growth. So even small product changes can have a huge impact, and Etsy's a great example of that. So they've been continually improving their search throughout their journey and still are. And then I think network effect opportunities are important, so that a marketplace or platform becomes stronger as it gets bigger. And Vinted is a great example of this. So with their customer to customer model, they're able to encourage buyers to become sellers to become buyers, and that creates a really strong flywheel for the company. I think also successful companies have found their right monetization model to drive growth and customer satisfaction. So, and there are so many different ways to do this. It could be a commission-based model, a listings model, or actually, via indirect charges. So we've seen that providing a strong proposition on the supply side as well as the demand side is definitely important. And indirect charges, where you're offering modular services to that supply side for them to opt into or not, can be really, really successful. And then I think if you have truly built a platform, a kind of a marketplace platform, what's quite beautiful is that once you've done one job for a consumer or a user, you can then move to, once you've built that trust, doing other jobs for them really well. So that kind of continual expansion is important. So that's platforms. I think when we're thinking about products businesses as well, I think that customer community and content are really key, and that's what can differentiate from incumbents. So having a relationship with consumers, which is more than just that product they're buying at that moment. So Bleach London is a great example of that. They've built a really strong organic community across Instagram and TikTok, who love their educational and quite entertaining content across hair care. And then probably growth stage wise, in some but not all cases, successful geographic expansion. So knowing how to approach and win in each market and when to do that. And that's something we spend a lot of time on at Burda. And then organization design. So as your company grows, evolving your team and ways of working at each step of the journey is something we think is really important, and is often a question founders have at the growth stage when we start partnering with them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, lots of elements.
A lot of things to growth, right? I think what is quite unique in the place where you are is that actually you are changing the face of retail, and that is something that is a very hot trend right now with a lot of the brick and mortar shops issues, whilst you are looking at pretty much delivering a lot of the same in the end product, but with many technological, data-driven, and all these other aspects, very much engaging the consumer, like you said. So it's really changing the face of what we have known as retail for many, many years. I think that we are at a tipping point of changing that, and I think it's an amazing place to be. So really, congratulations. Since we are both female and we see how much of the consumer decisions women make in households, in the world around them, it's pretty amazing to see quite a few female founders out there, like the founder of Vinted, who I guess must have brought Vinted to life because she had a problem with her own wardrobe and wanted to do something about it. And I guess that there are now a few also females looking at femtech sector. I know you've been looking at that. So, and you've published on Medium an article about it as well. So I'm kind of thinking, what do you see there in terms of the leaders in consumer who are female? Is there anything, that's particularly interesting in this field?
Yeah, so I think, overall, we really do believe very strongly in founder diversity. And we do, as you mentioned, work with many amazing female leaders in our portfolio, and we would continue to like to do so. And we do act upon that. So in terms of our investment allocation, and I guess female founders active within our portfolio companies as either CEO or founder, that would be kind of 53% of our allocation.
Really?
So,
wow.
So we are we are acting upon that, and examples would be Bleach London, the female company, Bauble Bar, Zilingo, all really incredible leaders. And I think one of the drivers of that as well is we do believe in investment diversity. So we have 16 investment professionals across our offices, and 44% of them are women. And the team includes 8 nationalities, and the team speaks 9 different languages. And I think, that's important to us as well when we're thinking about diversity across the board and for a diverse consumer base.
Wow. Okay, that's an amazing result. And I hope that you have many more female founders and co-founders in your unicorns.
Yes.
Fingers crossed for all those females out there trying to build the next unicorn. I guess another trend that we are seeing is with Gen Z, with millennials as consumers and how their consumer decisions are being shaped. It'd be super interesting to get a bit of, your insight into that in terms of thesis, strategy, and your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there are potential generational shifts, and I think probably for Gen Z, purpose is really important. I think purpose-led brands, I think also this does get accelerated in uncertain times, and so I think uncertain times allow companies to build really strong relationships with their consumers, and if they are purpose and mission driven, then that can work really well. And we do really believe in brands with a purpose. So the companies like the female company, Bleach London, Skillshare, Quick Genius, one of our latest investments, and many of our portfolio have strong missions.
I think it's also really it's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely important to us.
Society. Yeah,
exactly. I think what's quite interesting as well, and this is just my personal interpretation of social networks, but if we look at Instagram versus TikTok, Instagram usage seems to be quite related to aspirational content, and TikTok usage seems to be quite focused on social entertainment. And there's obviously quite a difference in demographic across those platforms in terms of Gen Z with TikTok, and that could be potentially an interesting reflection of different customer demographics and attitudes going forwards.
Yeah. Okay. In terms of the times that we are in, there's this new pandemic reality. We've had it now for 6 months or longer. Do you see any changes to consumer behavior as a result? What do you think will happen over the next few months?
Big question. Yeah. I think what is definite is that there has been and there will be more e-commerce than before. So if we look at the shape of online penetration in many industries, this has actually increased by 1/3 since the beginning of COVID. And according to a number of research houses, it's sticking more than anticipated. And some people believe that's even accelerated by around 5 years. So that market size for online has definitely got bigger, and I think that will, to some extent, remain the case over the next few months. And I think there's a few surveys around, 50% of people say they intend to purchase more online going forward. So I think that more e-commerce is definitely a trend. We're quite interested in the health focus that we think is increasing amongst consumers. So, and that could be across many different areas. So primary and secondary health delivery, virtual fitness, digital therapeutic models, wellness content. So we're really looking quite deeply into that space. And I can talk more about that. And then I think looking forwards, many people are talking about the possibility of quite a challenging macroeconomic situation and rising unemployment. So we think that propositions supporting consumers in this environment could be quite key and in higher demand, and maybe some areas of discretionary spend might be impacted negatively. So some of the areas we're looking into is really financial wellness and ways to drive that for consumers, mental wellness, and future of work and employment, and I guess productivity ultimately.
So there's a lot of health themes around that, because in the first topic, and also in the second one, still the health of the mind is still health. So it seems that you are thinking a lot about this segment now. What are the interesting trends out there? What's exciting?
Yeah, sure. So there's a lot I can share, I guess, what we're looking into at the moment. So a number of categories. So definitely behavioral health, wellness, fitness at home, food as medicine, and basically areas where we believe technology can have a huge impact. So we're excited by digital therapeutic models. And by that, I mean companies that use tech to create excellent clinical outcomes. So maybe to replace or sit alongside pharmaceutical drugs.
Right.
For example, so I mean, an example would be Achilles technology, which was approved by the FDA, which is a video game, which can be used to support children with ADHD instead of pharmaceutical drugs. So we thought that was an interesting shift in the industry. We're also, I guess, really excited by the fact that this type of model can continuously improve outcomes over time using data, which is difficult for pharmaceuticals to do. And we recently invested in Quick Genius, which was announced yesterday, which is a technology-enabled digital clinic for multiple addictions.
Okay.
So
what is it? How does it work?
Yeah. So the company uses cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's backed by really strong clinical research to help consumers quit substance abuse, basically. And they do that with a combination of very personalized content, which is continually becoming more personalized over time, scalable coaching virtually, and measurement devices as well for accountability. So yeah, really exciting journey they're on at the moment.
It's really exciting how healthcare has switched to a digital model in many cases, where you can help with actually measuring the data and predicting what is the next step to take in a therapy, right? Because that's exactly the kind of things you're looking at.
Definitely. And there's, we think there's a lot of opportunity to basically gather more insights through data, for example, potentially around hormones or the gut. We're interested in companies in the menopause space that are, starting to provide deeper insight on that. And in gut health, we thought there was quite an interesting study from a company called Zoe Health, which basically, the way I interpreted that was that each person, even if they're genetically identical, reacts differently to different foods. So eating an apple could have a very different impact on one person rather than another. So I guess the logical step from that is that providing diets or nutrition that is kind of one size fits all doesn't make sense. So there are some really exciting possibilities to use data to provide like a really personalized food as medicine type journey. So we thought that was quite interesting. And we've looked quite a lot into the different monetization channels in health, which is, of course, you know, one of the key challenges in the space as the digital space develops. So whether that's consumers, insurers, pharmacy benefit managers, and how that differs in Europe to US to Asia. So yeah, and you know, finally, I think longitudinal tracking of health related data could be really exciting. So what could be discovered from tracking continuously versus like one snapshot of an appointment in a doctor's office, or could data gathered around someone's lifestyle continuously help to inform actually some of their other health outcomes. So yeah, we think it's a pretty exciting space and still learning there.
Definitely health space in terms of the next shift, the next huge growth is out there, and data-driven models in healthcare had not been adopted for many years, and there's still so much to do. And I guess one of the things is what's going around female tech space as well, because females were not in the past used for clinical trials. A lot of their data was not used. So there's a huge investment opportunity in medication and medical services around that. So I think plenty to do, right, for a venture investor.
Definitely. And, you know, perhaps naively, I'm very excited about opportunities in the femtech reproduction space, and we're, you know, investors there. But I think, as you say, there's the possibility of some discoveries in nearly every space where, you know, when we talk about female, I guess, XX cells, where they react differently to male XY cells, you know, in the heart or the lungs. And you wonder actually what health interventions there could be out there, which maybe were discounted, but could work well on female cells and could be more cost effective, more effective in terms of outcomes that could be looked at. And I think probably one of the challenges there is to be looking at this scalably. And I think there's some interesting technologies out there to be able to do that. So what the team at Unlearn is doing, I think, is interesting, with the digital twins being used to scale clinical trials versus having to rerun every clinical trial again to discover findings. So yeah, excited to see what happens in that space.
Okay, yeah. In terms of moving forward, I know that a lot of founders are looking to raise money at the moment. They're thinking about obviously extending their runway and thinking what's going to happen over the next few months. Yeah. Any advice that you can give to founders at this stage? What should they be thinking of? What's important? What's coming?
Yeah, I think, I mean, my overall advice would be to build the best business for your customers and to stay really close to them with the most effective model. I think also in uncertain times, building optionality into your business plan can be helpful. So thinking in advance, what are the different possible scenarios and the impact on the business, and how different routes can be tested, and learning on that in the journey. So I think those elements are really important. I mean, what we've seen across our really strong teams during these types of times is, I guess, agility. So really short learning loops to iterate and change, and setting up the decision making in the company and on the board to enable agility in movement around how customer needs might change due to external factors. And then really staying close to customers, so continual customer insights, so you know what the needs are, and just maybe going back to building that relationship with customers, which is more than transactional, which is about a purpose, a mission, about content you're providing to them, or about the community they're in. I think is something that in these times will always be helpful to build successful companies in the consumer space. Brilliant.
Thank you so much, Amelia.
Oh, thank you for having me. such a great initiative.
It was really a pleasure to hear your thoughts and insights. Best of luck with all your investments, and looking forward to working with you sometime.
Yeah, you too. Take care. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.